huge surprising obstacle is peer pressure. And it's because of fear, groupthink, weak-mindedness, immaturity, and then the need for acceptance. When it comes to fear, we got the fear of being outcast, fear of being hazed, fear of being looked at as lame, fear of being Joe Navy or Blue Falcon. So the fear of being outcast, think about it like this. A sailor, when they first join the Navy, they leave their friends, their family, they leave everybody. And they're going to join an organization that's supposed to have camaraderie, a spirit de corps, all that good stuff. And they're like, all right, damn, I don't have no friends. I'm leaving everybody. And the last thing I want is to be that guy on the outside. I can't be an outcast, right? And so they more often than not fall into a lot of peer pressure from here and there, right? A lot of times they see people getting into haze and stuff like that, and I see that all the time, right? Yeah, we got rules and stuff like that, but you're not supposed to do that, but it happens, right? I mean, I stop sailors like here and there, like, hey, what you doing? What you doing to this guy, right? And it happens sometimes. A sailor has that fear of being that guy to be picked on and all that stuff, and it's not right. I get it. They don't want to be looked at as lame. And nobody really does, right? We are humans at the end of the day. No matter if you're a sailor, don't matter what your rank is, you're a human at the end of the day, and you don't want to be looked at as lame. You want to be hip. And so it's easier to fall in that peer pressure because you don't want to be looked at as lame. So if you got a whole bunch of people and they all smoking joints, hey man, like, why don't you take the joint too? Like, it's easier for that person to fall into it because they don't want to look like they're not a part of the crew, or that like they're cool because they got that fear, right? The fear of being Joe Navy or being a Blue Falcon. Right, this guy, some guy, I don't know who he is, but his name is Joe Navy. He's in the Navy, right? And he knows everything about the Navy. He's super Navy. He does no wrong. He knows no wrong. And then you have the Blue Falcon, the guy that gets everybody in trouble, the guy that sees everybody's faults, and he would tell on you in a heartbeat. He'll burn you in a heartbeat. A lot of sailors, they fear being those two guys. So when there is some kind of situation where peer pressure is going on to feed that agenda and stuff like that, they're gonna accuse a person or bring up like, oh, this person's Joe Navy or Blue Falcon and stuff like that. And people, they fear that, so they're not gonna engage in things that make them look like that. Next up is groupthink. And that's the cliques, the groups like the E4 Mafia, Filipino Mafia. That is the loudest guy in the room. That's the guy with the longest tenure, the groupthink. With groupthink, you got the cliques and you got the groups and stuff, right? And we got the cliques like the Wolf Pack, like with the Wolf Pack and DX and stuff like that. All those cliques. And in the Navy, you got the E4 Mafia or the Filipino Mafia, like they say. Those are not real mafias, by the way. They don't really exist. But because of their cohesion and things like that, or the way they're so connected, that groupthink and the way they might push their agendas on people, it might be easier for a person to go into peer pressure. The loudest guy in the room is the one. Sometimes he could be saying all the wrong things. Loudest girl in the room could be saying all the wrong things, strong and they wrong. But being that they so loud, you got some guys that's, they're quiet, or they just like, oh damn, like, all right, he's saying something. I mean, it's loud enough, so I'm gonna just go with whatever, right? Or I'm not gonna say anything. And think about groupthink. If you don't say anything, you're agreeing. And if you're the loudest guy in the room, it's much easier to push your agenda on somebody. With that groupthink, a lot of people fall into that peer pressure just because the guy, he's pushing that. He's saying a lot of things, and people are just, all right, you're right, because they don't want to end up in a shouting match or whatever the case may be. And then you got the sailors with the longest tenure. Those guys, some of them are really brilliant. They've been at the ship or the command for forever, and they know a lot of stuff. And it's not always the case. Sometimes they don't know a damn thing. But because they've been there so long, if you're the new guy, let's say, for instance, Seaman Roy here, he just gets to the command and he sees some things that could be improved, some things that could be a little better. But he's like, man, why are we doing it this way? And then he says, hey, man, all right, I see we're doing this and we're doing this, and I think that we could be doing some things better. And then you got Seaman whoever, and they're like, whatever. Like, you don't know what you're talking about because I've been here longer. All right, so it don't work like that. Shut up. If that person don't really have no courage and stuff like that, then they might just, okay, all right, whatever. I guess I'll just shut up and I'll just let things go off like that. And that's not the right way to do it. And they'll just get sucked right up in the agenda. That's peer pressure. That's peer pressure. When it comes to weak-mindedness, you got the sellers with the low self-esteem, the ones that are scared to take risks, the ones that have no identity, they don't set boundaries. In that case, you have to be validated. You have to be validated on that case. Sellers with the low self-esteem, when they have low self-esteem, it's much easier for them to fall into peer pressure, right? I mean, if they have that weak mental state and things like that, then it's much easier. If they don't feel like they're somebody, things like that, they don't feel like they can ever make a difference, it'll be much easier for them to get sucked into peer pressure. I see it all the time. Now, when it comes to a sailor being afraid to take risks, it's much easier for them to fall into peer pressure, right? If a sailor's like, all right, I mean, because check it out. Sometimes you got one shot. You got one shot. And if you screw that one shot up, you're going to be looked at crazy. Some people, they can't take that. They can't take the fact that, all right, if I screw this up, I'm going to look crazy. And so I'm just not going to do anything. All right, these guys, loudest guy in the room, he's pushing this agenda. All right, you know what? I have an idea. It might be a little bit risky. You know, it might be a little bit outside of the box, but I'm not going to say anything because I just don't want to fail. And a lot of times people doubting their ability and they really good with what they do, but they don't want to take that risk because they don't want to be looked crazy. All right, sometimes people have no identity. And when we join the military, we're supposed to have some kind of identity, right? We're sailors and stuff like that. But sailors are a lot of people up and down the ranks, by the way. They join and they have no identity. Right? I remember joining and not really like embracing like who I was as a person, who I was as a sailor. And it was much harder to do just about everything. As soon as I embraced who I was, it was like a breeze for me to do whatever I do in the Navy. Easy. It was so easy to do anything I do in the Navy. A lot of people fall under that peer pressure, that groupthink and things like that because they just don't know who they are. That's why I said be validated, right? When you don't set boundaries, it's much easier to fall into peer pressure. You got sailors, right? And they don't set any sort of like barrier, right? People just push whatever agenda on them. But if a person says, hey, around me, if you're gonna drink with me, we only having 6 drinks, so that's it, right? And we not driving home, we're taking Uber, right? That's setting boundaries. But when you don't do that, now you get a case where it's like, all right, we're gonna go hang out, we're gonna go drink, and we're gonna see, or whoever is the least drunk is, that's the one that's gonna drive us all home. Once a person set that boundary, it's like, hey, that's not happening. We call an Uber and we're gonna go pick our cars up tomorrow. If you don't like it, too bad, right? But instead, some people fall into that peer pressure, and that's a huge obstacle, right? But you gotta know this. It's very important because it's about gains and retains, right? We wanna retain sailors, so let's educate them on this type of stuff, man. So you gotta be validated. You have to be validated, and that would keep you from being weak-minded. Immaturity. Most sailors that get in trouble are 18 to 14 years old. The limbic system and the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed yet. And then some sailors, they just want to have fun sometimes. When it comes to the 18 to 24-year-old sailors that's usually getting in trouble, that's because of their limbic system and the prefrontal cortex is not yet fully developed yet. You know, and those are the systems in your brain that says, all right, you know what? Think about this before you do it, man. Because because you might get in trouble a little bit later. So think about that. I read this book called Decoding Boys, and it talked about why young people get in trouble and things like that. And 18 to 24, it was around that time frame when it comes to the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. And with that right there, these sailors are like more prone to get in trouble. Because like I said, they just want to have fun at all costs. At all costs. They are the ones that are more inclined to get in the peer pressure because they're like, look, I'm not here for a long time. I'm just here for a good time, right? And so you get the 18 to 24-year-old sailors, the new sailors that come, especially with the bonuses and things like that. They come in and they're like, look, I'm here to wreak havoc, have fun, and get out, right? Especially with the bonus that's coming in. But they're not always told, like, hey, if you get in trouble, you don't finish your contract or whatever the case may be, you are not going to be able to stay in. And you got to pay that money back, right? And so they don't know that, and they just do whatever, right? Whereas if you actually take the time out, you actually say, like, hey, what you doing for the weekend? What's your plans? Blah, blah, blah. If you engage with them, then they're more inclined to kind of make the right decisions, right? Something in their head might go off and say, hold up. You know, me and Chief kind of talk about the weekend and whatnot, and I know that y'all want me to do X, Y, and Z, but nah, I'm good. You know, that peer pressure won't set in as easily. When they are immature, you have to understand that. Engage with your sailors, and maybe they won't make a lot of those decisions. A lot of my sailors, they don't really necessarily get in trouble right now because I have those conversations, and I mean, maybe they just not the type to get in trouble. I don't know, but I try to make sure that I'm talking with them. The need for acceptance, the need to make friends, networks, the need to have a support system, and the need to have a team. For sailors, they need friends. They need friends. When you're coming to a new situation, new duty station, new military, whatever the case may be, you need friends. Right, I have a video on YouTube on how to make friends, especially when you're at a new duty station and things like that. You guys should check it out sometime. That video is really useful if you're trying to make new friends at whatever duty station you're going to. Anyway, the need for a support system. A sailor needs friends in their background, people in their background to be like, hey man, get up man, keep on going, keep on pushing man, you got this, you got this, you got this, right? They need people in their corner to keep on making sure that like they're pushing, right? That's how a sailor keeps on going. It's non-essential for a sailor to have somebody like that in their corner, a support system. Sailors need networks. Networks are resources. Sailors understand that people are the biggest resources. So if you have people in your corner, right? If you have networks in your corner, then you have resources. You can do anything. Right? That ensures sailors successful a lot of times. A lot of times, your expertise is not the only thing that can make a job happen. You need somebody else. You need a network of people with their own skill sets and resources so that you can get your job done. It is what it is. And then I say a sailor, they need a team. Sailors need a team because a lot of people, they have common goals and things like that, common skill sets or skill sets that are interdependent on one another. And they all need to work together to get that common goal. Sailors understand that. And so they have that huge obstacle of the need for acceptance, which make them fall into peer pressure sometimes. So if you understand that, then you'll be able to like lead a sailor a little better. You'll be able to gain and retain a little better.